Here's something that might shock you. Most movie fans are completely missing out on Robert Redford's most brilliant performances. Sure, everyone raves about the obvious classics. You know the ones, those iconic Paul Newman collaborations that get mentioned in every greatest films list. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting. Absolute masterpieces that rightfully earned their legendary status. Then there are the heavyweight dramas that critics adore. All the President's Men, The Natural, The Way We Were, and Out of Africa. That haunting musical score still gives me chills, even if the film itself never quite clicked for me personally. But here's where it gets controversial. I believe Redford's true genius shines brightest in the films that somehow slipped through the cracks of popular memory. As someone who spent years championing overlooked cinematic gems through various Hidden Treasures features, I've noticed a pattern. When legendary actors like Gene Hackman passed away, people flocked to revisit the same handful of well-known titles, completely ignoring equally brilliant but lesser-known works that deserve just as much attention. Let me challenge your assumptions about what makes a Robert Redford film worth watching. These 5 overlooked masterpieces might just change how you view one of Hollywood's most discerning stars, The Hot Rock. Comedy gold hidden in plain sight. William Goldman penned some of Redford's most celebrated screenplays. You probably know them by heart. But here's what most people miss. One of Goldman's cleverest scripts remains virtually invisible to modern audiences. The Hot Rock presents Redford as John Dortmunder, a career criminal whose repeated attempts to steal a single precious gem become increasingly elaborate and hilarious. What makes this crime caper special? It's the closest Redford ever came to pure comedy territory, except for that later misfire Legal Eagles, which we won't discuss. George Segal delivers a perfectly matched performance as Dortmunder's brother-in-law and reluctant crime partner, while Zero Mostel practically steals every scene he appears in. The film's brilliance lies in its structure. Each failed heist attempt becomes more absurdly complex than the last. Unfortunately, tracking down a copy these days requires some detective work of your own, though the Criterion Channel occasionally features it in their rotating selection. Jeremiah Johnson, the meme that became a masterpiece. You've probably seen the famous nodding gif without realizing its cinematic origins. But dismissing Jeremiah Johnson as merely meme material would be a massive mistake. Sidney Pollack crafted something far more sophisticated. A haunting meditation on isolation, survival, and the devastating cost of cultural collision. Redford's casting initially seems counterintuitive. Picture this role offered to Steve McQueen or Clint Eastwood. Both would have brought their trademark tough guy personas. Instead, Redford's unexpected gentleness creates something entirely different. His bearded mountain man possesses a vulnerability that makes the character's tragic arc infinitely more powerful. The plot centers on a deadly game of honor. When Jeremiah inadvertently violates sacred Crow territory, the tribe marks him for death. Generation after generation of warriors attempt to fulfill this obligation, yet none can defeat the reluctant mountain man. What begins as a survival story transforms into something deeper, a meditation on how violence begets violence and how isolation can be both curse and salvation. And this is the part most people miss. The film's heart lies not in its action sequences, but in the tender romance between Jeremiah and a Crow leader's daughter. Their brief happiness makes the inevitable tragedy infinitely more devastating. 3 Days of the Condor, Paranoia perfected. Action films weren't typically Redford's forte, which makes this post-Watergate thriller even more remarkable. Playing a CIA analyst who accidentally uncovers a massive government conspiracy, Redford finds himself hunted by the very agency he serves. What seemed revolutionary in 1975 might feel familiar now. How many similar government-gone-rogue thrillers have we seen since? But that's exactly why this film deserves recognition as the template that influenced countless imitators. Sidney Pollack orchestrated several genuinely suspenseful sequences that still hold up magnificently. Here's a fun connection that proves this film's lasting influence. When Marvel cast Redford in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, they were making a deliberate reference to his role here. Both characters represent ordinary men discovering their government's darkest secrets. Brubaker, undercover justice. Redford rarely tackled purely gritty material, making Brubaker all the more compelling. Based on actual events, the film features one of cinema's most effective narrative surprises. Redford appears to be playing just another prison inmate in the early scenes, until the shocking revelation that he's actually the facility's new reform-minded warden working undercover. This structural gambit works brilliantly because audiences spend the first act sympathizing with what seems like another wrongly imprisoned protagonist. When the truth emerges, our perspective completely shifts and we suddenly understand we're watching a different kind of story entirely. The film pairs perfectly with Redford's much later prison drama, The Last Castle, creating an interesting double feature about institutional corruption and the individuals brave enough to challenge it. Spy Game. Technical brilliance meets star chemistry. I was tempted to champion Sneakers here. Though honestly, hasn't that already achieved cult classic status? Instead, let me make a case for Tony Scott's criminally underrated Spy Game. This slick technological thriller paired veteran Redford with rising star Brad Pitt, whom Redford had previously discovered and mentored in A River Runs Through It. Scott's signature kinetic editing style and propulsive pacing created something completely unlike anything else in Redford's filmography. The film operates on multiple timeline levels, with flashbacks revealing the complex mentor-student relationship between the two leads while a present-day crisis unfolds in real time. But here's where it gets controversial. Some critics dismiss this as mindless action spectacle. They completely miss the sophisticated emotional undercurrents running beneath all that technical wizardry. If you're hungry for even more overlooked Redford treasures, consider exploring All Is Lost, The Old Man and the Gun, The Electric Horseman, and The Candidate. Each offers something different, proving that one of Hollywood's most selective actors rarely made a wrong choice. Now I'm curious. Which Robert Redford performance do you think deserves more recognition? Are you team stick with the classics or willing to venture into these hidden gems? And here's the real question that might spark some debate. Do you think Redford's careful project selection actually hurt his legacy by making some brilliant films harder to discover? Drop your thoughts below. I have a feeling this might divide the room.